Nightline begins now with me, Nadia Azmi. The top stories. PM unveils 28-member cabinet with 2 DPMs. And BN bows out in Padang Serai, backs PH candidate. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim on Friday night unveiled his cabinet lineup, comprising 28 ministers, with 2 deputy prime ministers appointed for the first time in the country's history. As promised, it is also a leaner cabinet, which is a mix of experienced leaders and new faces from Pakatan Harapan, Barisan Nasional, Gabungan Parti Sarawak and other partners in the unity government.
Jemaah menteri inilah jemaah menteri kerajaan perpaduan. Maka ada beberapa prinsip yang diterima pakai untuk merangkul semua kekuatan induk dan dukungan berikutnya. Kekuatan induk itu adalah Pakatan Harapan yang mencatat jumlah undi terbanyak dan ahli parlimen terbesar. Diikuti oleh Barisan Nasional yang memilih itu bersama dan GPS Sarawak.
The announcement on the cabinet lineup was made in Putrajaya at 8:20 p.m. and was broadcast live through local television stations and social media platforms. According to Datuk Seri Anwar, he will also hold the finance minister portfolio, which he held prior to this from 1991 to 1998. He stressed that although he was not inclined to take up the portfolio, an approach was needed to restore economic confidence among businesses and foreign investors. On the 2 deputy prime minister posts, he said it will be held by BN chairman Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi and Datuk Seri Fadilah Yusof representing GPS.
Timbalan Perdana Menteri dan Menteri Kemajuan Desa dan Wilayah Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi. Timbalan Perdana Menteri dan Menteri Perdagangan dan Komoditi Datuk Seri Haji Fadilah bin Yusof.
Datuk Seri Anwar added that a team of advisors will also assist the government, especially in matters related to the country's finances, and will be led by former Petronas President and Chief Executive Officer Tan Sri Muhammad Hassan Marakan. Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Anwar said he will hold a special meeting with his cabinet ministers after the swearing-in ceremony before the Yang di-Pertuan Agong on Saturday. The Prime Minister stated that his cabinet would focus on good governance and eradicating corruption and abuse of power, adding that measures to reduce the burden of the people and ways to stimulate the economy will be the top priorities of the cabinet under his leadership.
Setelah mengangkat sumpah jam 3 petang esok, insya-Allah, dan diperkenan oleh Kebawah Duli Yang Mulia Yang di-Pertuan Agong, saya akan mengadakan pertemuan khas dengan menteri-menteri supaya beberapa peraturan dan hala tuju dan kaedah baru diperkenalkan.
Datuk Seri Anwar also said that the deputy ministers would be announced later. The Tambun Member of Parliament, who is also PH chairman, was sworn in as Prime Minister before the King last week after forming a unity government following the 15th general election, which resulted in a hung parliament. For political analysts, the new cabinet lineup is set to excel under Datuk Seri Anwar's leadership. However, what matters the most for the people is that the cabinet is stable, functional and can perform efficiently as well as maintain integrity.
Not only in trying to address all the issues encountered by the rakyat or also the countries currently, especially in terms of economy, job opportunities, inflations and cost of living. So with the experience and also the new faces in this cabinet, we hope that they will be able to work as a team. And this is based on the principle of collective responsibility. As a team member, each and everyone should be able to work hand in hand with the aspirations, in fulfilling the aspirations of the Prime Minister.
I think it's very interesting when the Prime Minister said most probably the finance portfolio or finance minister don't need deputies. In this case, Datuk Seri Anwar announced that he will be advised by a group of experts, by a group of advisors. So I think if this particular strategy is replicated for other portfolio, for other ministry, where a group of experts, professionals, technocrats, instead of deputy ministers, well, you need deputy ministers, I guess, in some of the portfolio. I think this is where the working cabinet promised by Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim.
Now, Malaysian Institute of Economic Research, MIER Senior Fellow, Professor Dr. Jeffrey Williams, believed that Datuk Seri Anwar's decision to helm the Finance Ministry, which he first held about 30 years ago, is a brilliant move, as it could expedite important decisions to drive the country's economy forward.
And I think that the new balance with Datuk Seri Anwar as the Finance Minister as well as the Prime Minister, and particularly with Rafizi Ramli as the Economics Minister, will mean that both the financial side of the economy can be managed very successfully, and the structural changes that are necessary in the economy will be handled also very successfully by Rafizi. Now, the immediate challenge will be to deal with a mini-budget before the end of the year. It's unlikely that that will be particularly controversial. It's mainly to do with the payment of civil service salaries. But we might see some extra spending in order to tide people over until the main budget. It's likely then that the main budget will come probably in January now, it looks like, after some time when a new budget can be constructed. So we are really now looking forward to trying to see what will be the long-term economic trajectory of the economy, keeping prices low as much as possible, addressing the cost of living and supporting sustainable economic growth, as well as introducing structural reforms which are long overdue.
Meanwhile, industry players and the business community in Malaysia have expressed hope for the new cabinet to expedite measures to stimulate the country's economy.
NCCIM looks forward to the continued support for the business sector, in particular the manufacturing sector, and most importantly, a business-friendly regulatory environment is essential in ensuring the ease of doing business and to keep industries competitive and sustainable. We call on all the ministers to ensure that all the measures and policies implemented to aid the recovery and revival of businesses.
Due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the global economy, we hope that our new cabinet ministers will help steer Malaysia's economy back on track to help our rakyat and our Malaysian retailers. We are ready to engage with all the respective ministries to address various economic and retail issues. Once again, our heartiest congratulations to our new Unity Cabinet and our new Unity Government.
Earlier, Datuk Seri Anwar was granted an audience with Sultan of Perak, Sultan Nazrin Muizzuddin Shah at Istana Kinta in Ipoh. The audience began at 10:50 a.m. and lasted about an hour before the car carrying the Prime Minister was spotted leaving the palace at noon. This was Datuk Seri Anwar's first audience with Sultan Nazrin after he was sworn in as the Prime Minister last November 24th. It was also the Prime Minister's first official visit to Perak after winning the Tambun parliamentary seat in the 15th general election GE15. Datuk Seri Anwar, who is also Pakatan Harapan PH chairman, also took the opportunity to meet and greet the people in the constituency before returning to Putrajaya. He first made a stop at the Tanjung Rambutan market, where hundreds of people at the market jostled to greet and have their pictures taken with the Prime Minister. He then headed for Friday prayers as well as Kenduri Rakyat event at Muhammad Al-Fatih Mosque in Taman Jati. In GE15, Datuk Seri Anwar won the Tambun seat with a 3,736 majority against 4 other contenders. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah on Friday presented the instruments of appointment to 11 Malaysian envoys to missions abroad at Istana Negara. Raja Permaisuri Agong Tunku Hajah Azizah Aminah Maimunah Iskandaria was in attendance. The newly appointed Malaysian envoys are Datuk Seri Ahmad Fadil Samsudin, a former comptroller of Istana Negara Royal Household, who has been appointed as ambassador to the United Arab Emirates; Datuk Tan Yang Thai, Vietnam; Dr. Adina Kamaruddin, Germany; and Zainal Izran Zahari, Senegal. Also receiving the instruments were Muhammad Adli Abdullah, who has been appointed as ambassador to Kazakhstan, Edi Irwan Mahmud, Laos; Muhammad Nasri Abdul Rahman, Jordan; and Ilham Tuah Ilyas, Uzbekistan. Other appointees are Muhammad Azhar Mazlan, who has been assigned as Malaysian High Commissioner to Pakistan, Marzita Marzuki, New Zealand; and Badli Hisham Adam, Sri Lanka. Also present at the ceremony was the Foreign Ministry's Secretary General, Datuk Seri Amran Muhammad Zain. Barisan Nasional candidate Datuk Sivaraj Chandran has officially bowed out from the Padang Serai parliamentary election to give way to Pakatan Harapan candidate Dr. Muhammad Sofi Razak. Kedah BN chairman Datuk Seri Jamil Khair Baharom, who confirmed the matter, said that the coalition will now back PH to win the seat in a straight fight with Perikatan Nasional.
Dan kita harapkan pada hari pilihan raya yang mendatang minggu hadapan, insya-Allah Pakatan Harapan yang bersama bergabung Barisan Nasional akan mencapai kemenangan. Kerajaan perpaduan akan dimartabatkan.
He made this announcement when addressing the crowd during a political rally at Padang Meha in Kulim Kedah less than 10 hours before early voting begins. Also present was Amanah President Muhammad Sabu, who was representing the federal PH leadership. Datuk Sivaraj is the second candidate to yield to PH after Muhammad Bakri Hashim of Warisan. Voting for the Padang Serai polls will be held on December 7th. 10 Pahang elected representatives were sworn in as State Executive Council members at Balairong Sri Istana Abu Bakar in Pekan on Friday. All the assemblymen received their letters of appointment and were sworn in before the Regent of Pahang, Tengku Hasanal Ibrahim Alam Shah Al Sultan Abdullah, in a ceremony which began at 3:05 p.m. The 10-member state exco lineup in the first unity government between Barisan Nasional BN and Pakatan Harapan PH in Pahang consists of 8 assemblymen from UMNO and 1 each from DAP and PKR respectively. Also present at the ceremony were Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Wan Rosdi Wan Ismail and Pahang State Secretary Datuk Seri Dr. Salihuddin Ishak. The BN members are 6-term Benta Assemblyman Datuk Seri Muhammad Sofi Abdul Razak, Kerdau Rep Datuk Seri Said Ibrahim Said Ahmad, and Bebar Assemblyman Datuk Muhammad Fakhruddin Muhammad Arif. The new faces are former Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Razak's eldest son, Datuk Muhammad Nizar, who is also Pramujaya Assemblyman, Pelangai Assemblyman Datuk Johari Harun, Guai Rep Datuk Sabariah Saidan, Muazzam Shah Assemblyman Razali Kasim, and Fazli Muhammad Kamal, who is Dong Assemblyman. Meanwhile, the 2 PH members are Triang's 3-term Assemblyman Leong Yu Man from DAP, along with 3-term Teruntum Assemblyman Sim Chong Siang from PKR. It was understood that the portfolios of each member will be decided after the first EXCO meeting. BN and PH agreed to form the Pahang state government after the results of the 15th general election GE15 saw a hung assembly for the first time after no party obtained a simple majority of 22 seats to form the state government. When we return, Indonesia to penalise sex outside marriage.
Yang dinanti.
Parliament is expected to pass a new criminal code this month, which will penalise sex outside marriage with the punishment of up to 1 year in jail. The Justice Ministry on Friday said the new criminal code, which took decades in the making, is expected to be passed on December 15th. The legislative overhaul will also ban insulting the president or state institutions and expressing any views counter to Indonesia's state ideology. Meanwhile, the criminalisation of abortion, with the exception of rape victims and imprisonment for black magic, will remain in the code. The code, if passed, would apply to Indonesian citizens and foreigners alike, with business groups expressing concern about what damage the rules might have on Indonesia's image as a holiday and investment destination. Britain's opposition Labour Party retained a parliamentary seat in the northwest of England on Friday, comfortably winning the vote in the first electoral test for Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister. Labour candidate Samantha Dixon won the City of Chester constituency, securing 61% of the vote, compared to 22% for the candidate from Sunak's Conservatives, while Labour's outright majority rose to 10,974 from 6,194. The scale of the defeat offers the first electoral judgment on the Conservatives after a chaotic few months where Boris Johnson and Liz Truss were both ousted as Prime Minister. According to British polling expert John Curtis, the scale of the swing could indicate Labour winning an outright majority in Parliament at the next national election, but noted that local elections were rarely a good guide. The next national election is expected in 2024. In the Philippines, bodies of 70 inmates from the country's largest prison were laid to rest in a mass burial on Friday, weeks after their decomposing remains were discovered in a Manila funeral home. They were among the 176 corpses found by police during an investigation into the death of an inmate who was accused of being involved in the killing of a journalist in early October. The country's Bureau of Corrections stated most of the deaths were due to natural causes, adding that 127 of the 140 bodies that have been buried so far were badly decomposed and could not be autopsied again. The bodies began piling up in the funeral home in December 2021 after their families, most of them poor, did not claim them. The mass burial was the largest ever conducted by the Bureau of Corrections in the Philippines. After this breather, Cameroon dreams of ending 30-year wait. World Cup. Portugal needs a point in its last Group H match against South Korea on Friday to guarantee finishing in first place. That might come with a perk, avoiding Brazil in the last 16. After the 2-0 win over Uruguay on Monday, Portugal head coach Fernando Santos was not planning to rest too many key players against South Korea. However, skipper Cristiano Ronaldo might be rested after missing team training on Wednesday, giving the likes of Gonzalo Ramos or Andre Silva a rare chance to start up front. South Korea, on the other hand, needs a win as well as a favour in the other game taking place concurrently between Ghana and Uruguay to join Portugal in advancing from the group. A win for Ghana, which is in second place on 3 points, 3 behind Portugal and 2 clear of South Korea and Uruguay, would mean the South Koreans cannot qualify whatever their result at Education City Stadium outside Doha. It could also prove to be the final game in charge of South Korea for Paulo Bento. In Group G, Brazil will look to become the first nation at the Qatar World Cup to win all 3 of their group games as they take on Cameroon. Seleção have a guaranteed passage into the knockout stages after beating both Serbia and Switzerland. Cameroon, meanwhile, are looking to redeem themselves after their slump in the first 2 matches where they lost narrowly to Switzerland and drew 3-3 with Serbia. Experienced forward Vincent Abubakar was expected to start against Brazil and lead the charge of securing a place in the knockout stages for the first time in 32 years. Serbia, in the meantime, will face Switzerland, with the Eagles knowing that they need to win to stand any chance of progressing to the knockout stages. A point is likely to be enough for second-place Nati as long as Cameroon fail to beat Brazil in the other remaining game in the group. Earlier, Japan staged their second stunning turnaround of the tournament to beat 2010 champions Spain 2-1 on Friday to surge into the last 16, along with their beaten opponents, and dump Germany out in one of the greatest nights for the Samurai Blue. Spain were the first to find the net when Alvaro Morata headed home Cesar Azpilicueta's inviting cross after just 11 minutes. Japan boss Moriyasu brought Ritsu Doan and Kaoru Mitoma into the game at half-time, and both were pivotal in their 2 goals. In the 48th minute, Unai Simon's poor clearance was intercepted by Japan before Doan's pile driver from 25 yards out could only be batted into the top corner by the Athletic Bilbao goalkeeper. 5 minutes later, and Japan got a shock second when Mitoma just about kept the ball in play on the byline before he squared for Ao Tanaka to prod into the net. Japan sat deeper as Spain looked to break down their compact defense, but Spain were guilty of overplaying, and Japan sealed a historic victory over the 2010 World Cup winners. Japan will play Croatia on December 5th, while runners-up Spain will take on Morocco on December 6th. In another Group E match, Germany crashed out of the tournament at the group stage for the second time in succession, despite a 4-2 win against Costa Rica. The Germans struck first with Serge Gnabry in the 10th minute, but saw the Central Americans score twice with Gelson Tejeda and a Manuel Neuer own goal before a Kai Havertz brace put them back in front. Fellow substitute Niklas Füllkrug added a fourth in stoppage time, but it could do nothing to prevent their elimination. Germany finished third in the standings, behind Spain on goal difference, with Japan top following their 2-1 win over the Spaniards. 6 million ringgit worth of shabu seized. This and more after this short break. DBKL has been urged to make improvements to the infrastructure of the 80 stalls along Lorong Haji Hussein 1 in Chowkit, Kuala Lumpur. Titiwangsa Member of Parliament Datuk Seri Johari Abdul Ghani said failure to maintain the electrical wiring system of the stalls, which are now over 20 years old, could expose the traders to risk of fire.
Ini adalah satu pusat aktiviti mikro, peniaga-peniaga kecil berniaga, dan mereka ini merupakan sumber pencarian mereka. Jadi tempat ini tak adalah melibatkan kos yang banyak kalau DPMs boleh datang balik, buat balik semula benda ini. Dan kemudian supaya mereka boleh berniaga balik semula.
Datuk Seri Johari said this after visiting the site of a fire which razed 8 of the stalls in the area on Friday. Fortunately, no lives were lost in the 1 p.m. incident on Thursday. During the visit, Datuk Seri Johari also handed over some financial aid to the affected traders. The traders also have called on the DBKL to address the issue immediately to prevent the incident from recurring. In Selangor, police arrested a former e-hailing driver and confiscated drugs weighing 170.58 kilograms with 6.14 million ringgit during a raid at a house in Subang Jaya on Wednesday. State Deputy Police Chief Dato' S. Sasikala Devi said the 49-year-old suspect was nabbed at 3 p.m. in the rented house, which is believed to be used as a drug storage point. Speaking at a media conference on Friday, Dato' Sasikala said initial investigations revealed the suspect has a previous record related to gambling, and he was believed to have been active in drug trafficking activities around the Klang Valley for the past 2 months.
Hasil serbuan, pihak polis telah berjaya merampas 166 bungkusan plastik yang terdiri daripada 111 bungkusan plastik berwarna hijau dan kuning dan 55 bungkusan plastik Lucina yang mengandungi bahan yang disyaki methamphetamine.
The drugs were believed to have been obtained overseas, and authorities are currently identifying the suspect's possible connection with other drug syndicates. Police also seized a Honda City car estimated to be worth 18,000 ringgit. The suspect has been remanded for 7 days until December 7th to assist investigations under the Dangerous Drugs Act. Plunging temperature in China has turned the Longshuan Mountain, seated in southwest China's Guizhou province, into a wonderland shrouded by a sea of fog. Forests coated in rime ice on the rolling mountains created a spectacular scene, attracting throngs of tourists to savor the breathtaking beauty of the nature. Let's take a look at the stunning spectacle as we wrap up Nightline this time around. I'm Nadia Azmi. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and have a great weekend.